the board came shooting back in the barrel, and it went perfectly between my foot, and it split my foot into basically, basically in half. And it was when I was underwater, I could feel it going two separate directions. And it was a really long hole down. I believe it was like a minute underwater, which is really long for a big wave wipeout. And when I popped up, I had traveled 200 yards underwater.
Hey everyone, today I'm sitting down with Lenny, and that was a little snippet of our conversation. Kai is pretty much an all-around waterman. He lives in the ocean. He grew up in Maui, and he is one of the top big wave surfers in the world, along with a number of other sports. Whether it's riding 50-foot plus waves at Jaws or paddleboarding between the Hawaiian channels, windsurfing, he's done it all and he's won in it all. He's a crazy athlete, crazy competitive, but he's also a really chill guy. In this episode, we talk a little bit about how he trains, what it's like to live a life of constant travel, his addiction to burritos at Taco Bell, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So yeah, let's get right into it. This is my conversation with Lenny. Kai, thanks so much for making the time to do this with me today. I know your schedule is insane. We were talking a couple days ago, I guess, and you were telling me about your recent travels. Can you kind of get into that a little bit, what you're up to?
Yeah, I've just been super busy lately, traveling, and just got back from Africa and Peru. Specifically was surfing that long left in Africa called Skeleton Bay. That was pretty fun. And then surfed that wave Chicama in Peru. And now I'm back home for a minute, and gosh, wherever a slow pops up, I'll probably end up next. So, keeping myself entertained with other projects here while I kind of rest and wait.
Yeah, exactly. And you're always on the go. You're always traveling. How do you keep a level head and stay grounded when you're traveling? Does it get a little crazy?
Yeah, it gets a little crazy, especially like right before a trip when I'm here on Maui. I always have so mmany cool opportunities going on, and like things that are happening, projects specifically with like, interviews, different brands, just maybe I'm paddling between an island or doing some sort of sport, riding a big wave. So like a lot of times it gets really hectic just before I'm about to leave.
Yeah.
And once I'm on a trip, it's fine. Like I'm totally focused on what I need to do on that trip and enjoying myself. And it's almost easier to be on the road than it is at home sometimes because I have so much stuff happening when I come home.
Interesting. Yeah, I talked to a lot of athletes, and a number of them actually find it harder on the road because it's hard to get into a routine. Do you have anything that you do when you wake up in the morning when you're traveling, or do you just get into it?
Yeah, I just kind of get into it. When I'm traveling, I feel really adaptable as a person, and I think that's because I've done so many different sports for so long that when the surf's not great, I go on the foil, and when it's windy, I go kite surfing or windsurfing, or maybe I go stand-up paddling if the surf's not great either. So there's so many different things, and that's kind of taught me to be adaptable. And when I'm on the road, I kind of just let things happen and take it as it comes. And obviously there's a plan to it, but I love it when trips kind of morph and turn into something that you weren't expecting. Recently, when I was in Tahiti, I was doing a contest on one of the outer Tuamotu Islands, just a random island off of Tahiti, one of the thousands. And we had no idea what we were going to do for a place to stay when we decided to go to the next island over.
Yeah.
And we knew there was some great surf, but we had no idea where we were going to stay. There was a storm coming in. There was just all this calamity, and it was like for a minute, like, oh gosh, we're sleeping like at this little like tent of an airport and we're waiting for the next flight tomorrow if nothing happens. And sure enough, everything kind of came together, and we ended up like in the sickest accommodations at the sickest wave. So that all being said, that's what I love most about traveling, is when things you least expect to happen end up happening.
And have you found, as you've gotten more successful and well-known, it's harder to get that unique travel experience because things are so planned for you?
No, not really. Sometimes I get pretty bored at home, even though I have so much going on. It's like I'm so used to the routine here. I love it when I go on a trip. For example, when I went to Namibia in Africa, I basically, I had a set routine there. And then when we flew to Peru, I had a different routine. So it really felt fresh always. And I love that feeling of like kind of the fresh routine. Not like I like a routine, but I don't necessarily like it the same always. And when I come home, sometimes I get too stuck into my ways, like drive at the same time towards the same place, eat at this place. It's like I want it to be like new and exciting and adventurous. That's what I'm all about, sort of. So sometimes being home is harder than on the road, I feel like.
Interesting. Yeah, you clearly like variety, and it shows with the number of sports that you take on. What do you identify with now when people ask you, do you identify as a surfer?
I would say I identify as a surfer because, in my perspective, surfing to me is about riding waves, the art of riding waves.
Yeah.
And my own take on it is I don't really look at it as, sports specific, because each sport's kind of a different tool for a different type of wave, right? And I guess if you look in the dictionary, surfing doesn't define what board. It wouldn't say a 6'2" shortboard. It would say like the art of wave riding. And what is the art of wave riding to you? Could it be on a foil, a windsurfer, or anything? If I'm skipping across water and getting that sensation of riding a wave, then very well I'm surfing. So I consider myself a surfer. I guess just a water athlete,
Yeah. And you've had success in almost all the disciplines in contests. Do you think because you take on so many different sports, it kind of alleviates the pressure when you're competing in one, because you can just hop over to the other and it's something new and fresh?
Yeah, yes and no. I think part of the reason why I like competing in all these different sports is because when I do really well in one for a while and it starts to kind of get mundane, a little bit boring, because you kind of go into the same places every year, you're on the same tour, with the same people. It's kind of nice to all of a sudden break the mold and then go a completely different direction, and all of a sudden you're living essentially almost a different life, since most people only commit themselves to one thing. I guess that there is not pressure because of that. Every time you come in as a rookie, or like kind of a new kid on the
underdog,
block, a little bit, you don't have the pressure, and at least for me, I understand what I'm capable of. So there's kind of that catch people off guard sometimes. But at the same time, when you come into different sports and you're the underdog, the new guy on the block, it almost makes it harder to win, because people are seeing you successful in another sport, and here you come into another sport and they're like, well, what are you doing here? And it almost gets harder to win that way. But then the challenge is that much, greater and more pleasing when you do accomplish it eventually, because I'm a firm believer if you just commit yourself to something, eventually you'll get to where you want to go, as long as you keep that goal. And, it might take a year, maybe it takes 10 years. In my case, I've had early success pretty quickly, and I think it's about being adaptable and, keeping things exciting, because I want to do this for, freaking 30 more years, like 30 years. I want to do this till I'm 50. I look at guys like Robbie Nash or Kelly Slater or those guys competitively were doing it forever. Still, one of them still doing it. To me, I want to be doing that. And by going between these sports, it'll always seem fresh and exciting versus just like, I've been spinning my wheels for how many years.
Yeah. And is there also the aspect, I've talked to a few skiers about this, action sports are getting crazy. You see it in snowboarding and skiing especially. I mean, triple corks going to quad corks. Someone's head is going to fall off. Do you feel like you can, you get right to the edge of what you're comfortable with, let's say with big wave surfing, and instead of pushing it that next level that might kind of destroy you, you decide to use that energy in a different sport?
I understand where they're coming at. I know those sports are pretty advanced with, they're connected to their board. And the nice thing about like a lot of the sports I do, minus the windsurfing and kiting, is that you're really not connected to your board. So our really crazy tricks are only double rotations right now. And it's more of an art of keeping the board stuck to your feet than it is the actual rotation. So I haven't been scared from that aspect yet. Kiteboarding, on the other hand, is very much like what skiing and snowboarding is now, where you have to be competitive, like in the freestyle aspect, you got to be going 70 feet, you got to be spinning, and then you got to be looping your kite to the point where you're in negative space. And what I mean by that is the kite's lower than you, and you're suspended in the air sort of like weightlessly. And if you don't catch yourself, you can break both your legs instantly and get knocked out. I mean, there's an event in South Africa called King of the Air, and every year the two guys will get knocked out, break both their legs, because it's just that gnarly. They have the kite that's actually adding to it's pulling them faster towards the water than if they were just free falling. So that's pretty terrifying. I tend to, in my sports, stick towards a surfing base, to the art of wave riding and utilizing the waves. I still love to jump and stuff, but really using waves, to jump out and then ride back in.
Man, I saw that frontside air that you did at Jaws, I think it was. Yeah. That was so sick, man. Do you snowboard at all?
I snowboard a little bit. Actually, I went this January. I went with Jerry Lopez up at his house in Mountain Bachelor.
Nice.
And that was really fun. But I hadn't snowboarded in like 6 years because it's hard. Here, when the surf is gigantic, it's so hard to leave. And Murphy's Law, if you leave Maui to go on a snowboard trip, there's going to be a Jaws swell. And then you got to stress out about coming back, and you'd rather almost plant yourself here to get those big waves. Because the big waves essentially are my version of a mountain,
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I want to go. But with that frontside air at Piahi or Jaws, it really, was coming from a snowboarding idea. Snowboarding has always taken, what surfing's done. Like they've wanted to mimic what, snow or surfing is on a mountain. And now I think it's really cool that it's come full circle in the sense that I'm looking to snowboarding for inspiration, to go ride these big waves. Whereas before it was the opposite. And, as a surfer, seeing what, all these guys are doing is so inspiring. So just a basic frontside air. It's difficult out at Jaws because you don't get the same ramp twice. And, the ramp's moving underneath you as you're in the air. So it makes that more difficult. But in my mind, there's no reason why I can't be doing double corks out at Jaws on a 50-foot wave. Like, it's just, there's no doubt. Like, I see Travis Rice or John Jackson, these crazy guys doing this stuff at, Alaska. And I go, that's pretty much, like, they're probably doing it in even a gnarlier situation. At least it's water and I'll float back up with my inflation vest.
Right, but I still think you're giving yourself almost like not enough credit because, for example, I think it was, 2012 when you fell on that massive wave, sliced your foot open, and then got held over next to the reef.
Yeah.
Held under. Can you talk about that a little bit?
That was 2013. I think it was like just after 2012, like the transitional, month, January. And that was interesting because we were filming for a movie, the stand-up paddle movie, and it was really windy that day, and the surf wasn't that great. It wasn't consistent. So all of a sudden this big wave came, and I was like not really in the spot, but I had to make it work because I wanted to get the shot. The helicopter was there, and it was like, well, you kind of got to, nut up or shut up, essentially, get to that level if you want, people to take you seriously. And I just remember paddling in and the wind getting under me and catching air, and I just remember forcing it down, and when I landed, I just hit a weird chop, and it kind of bounced, and I broke the board with my shoulder when I fell in the water. Like, I hit the board, and then I went up in the barrel, and the board kind of went one direction, I went the other, and we have these leashes that are 12 feet long, and no joke, they're like an inch across. They're massive, at least 3/4 of an inch. They're just these, you could tell your truck up a mountain, basically. And the board came shooting back in the barrel, and it went perfectly between my foot. And it split my foot into basically in half. And it was, when I was underwater, I could feel it going two separate directions. And weirdly enough, it was about as deep as my fingers are here, so about like 2.5 inches. And then it was like, about an inch across spread. And it was a really long hole down. I believe it was like a minute underwater, which is really long for a big wave wipeout. And when I popped up, I had traveled 200 yards underwater from the peak to the rocks. I popped up and I see a rock, and it's like, whoa. I remember looking up and seeing the helicopter, and I could see the heli through my foot. And I was just like, yeah, I'm done for today. And then the heli picked me up, and luckily we have such a good safety team that within 45 minutes I was getting stitched up. And it seems so long ago, probably because it is, but I wouldn't take it back for a second because the scar I have now on my foot's pretty rad.
Super badass. When you're wearing your flip-flops around town, people are just like, oh,
I don't know, it's character,
Yeah, totally, man. It's like a tattoo, but even more authentic. Yeah, what people don't realize too is when you're held under for a minute, you just paddled in to a massive wave. You're already pretty gassed by the time you're on there, right? It's a long minute. How do you mentally recover from something like that?
Actually, every time I do, well, every time because I have survived every single time and I haven't passed out. When you come up from a minute hold down, sure, you're out of breath, certainly, but emotionally, you're so happy. You're like, oh, I'm alive. You know, there's this euphoric like rush of adrenaline, and you almost feel empowered to a certain extent. You know, it's like I almost feel like I absorbed that energy that wave was, dishing out on me. You know, it's sort of a challenge of like something's on top of you and you have to lift it off. But yeah, you're usually gassed because your heart rate on one is really high because you're looking at this basically moving mountain that's an avalanche coming down around you. And then, you're also physically working hard to get into that wave. And then underwater, the only thing you can do is really relax and just like zone out. And so a minute, I would say, below the surface is equivalent to like 5 minutes above the surface, like feeling wise, like the way your lungs burn. I've done some free diving courses and stuff and, definitely kept up on that to get my breathing and, lung capacity to where it needs to be for these giant waves. And I can hold my breath for about like 4:45 is my best. And, it always hurts way worse at the end of a 1 minute hold down. So I always say it's like, okay, that's what a 5 minute, breath hold would be underwater.
Gotcha. Yeah. And what is going through your head? Are you able to stay completely calm? Because every thought you have uses oxygen when you're underwater. Are you that mentally strong or prepared now that you can be held under and actually be calm?
Yeah, I think I've gone through the motions enough in big waves that I just kind of zone out. And I don't try to think so much about what's happening to me in the physical sense. It's like trying to retreat into your mind and not letting yourself panic and trusting in your abilities as an athlete. And then also the safety systems we have in place. I wear like an impact suit which has foam in it. It's basically just a wetsuit that's padded up, and that will give me, lift to the surface. And then we have kind of like basically what you would have underneath your airplane seat, an inflation vest. And those are awesome because you pull it and you're just sort of waiting for it to take you to the surface. You're eventually going to come up. Air always rises. Whether it happens in 10 seconds or a minute, you're going to come up. And I have had times where that hasn't worked, and I've been just a stone cold rock underwater. And I've had to, take the old-fashioned route, which is swimming up as hard as I can. But I can do it. So having that experience is what makes it easier. Usually the most terrifying part about a big wave wipeout isn't when you're underwater. It's mostly like right before the wave's about to land on you or you're about to fall. Because you see this cataclysmic looking wave that's 50 to 60 feet towering over you and just detonating on you. And there's like, it's more, if you close your eyes and let it hit you, it wouldn't be as scary. But you need to see where you're going, obviously. And visually, it's more scary than I think it is like, once you close your eyes underwater. And I never open my eyes underwater. I just kind of like, I can sense what's around me if my board's here, and like really relying on, just which way is up and down. That's gnarly. If you ever break your eardrum underwater, it can send you for a spin and you don't know which way's up. So
which I assume you've done.
I haven't actually.
No.
I don't want that to ever happen. I have like hurt my ear pretty bad, but nothing to the point where it spun me and I had like vertigo.
Man, the contrast between just kind of like your manner, you're so happy, you're so chill, humble, and the savage things that you do, like riding those waves. Like, how do you? I don't really even know what the question is. I'm just amazed that you're so chill and relaxed, yet you can go out there and kind of harness this warrior-like person and go ride these things. Is it because you grew up in this?
For sure, I'm a product of my environment, but I think being able to have a on and off switch is really important for, just your own mental health, and then also for just the stuff I do. Because like this tends to happen when we have back-to-back swells. Like if I have a swell that's hitting, Monday and then one on Friday, usually it's very hard to switch it off and just be like, oh, okay, like your normal self and then switch it back on for that swell. Usually you're like focused, and that's draining. And to be kind of on, I guess it would be like when you're in the big waves. For me, it's a light switch from when I go from the sand to the water. when I leave the sand and I jump in the water and I start going, it's like my mentality changes. You know, it's almost like you're almost becoming a different person. And only because you're entering, you know, Thunderdome, you're entering the Coliseum, you're entering a place where, you know, it's survival. And I would say my survival self comes into play. And that is like what's allowed me to perform the way I do. And a lot of times it's hard to imagine if I can pull something off when I'm on land to when I'm in the water. Because once I'm in the water, it seems way more manageable. Sometimes the scariest parts about big wave surfing is the days prior, because you're building up the monster in your head before you've met it. And it's a sort of a David and Goliath situation. You know, it's like the wave's always is much more powerful. So it's about being cunning and smart and working with it to not necessarily defeat it, but ride alongside it. You know, like how can you harness a dragon? It's just kind of like you're kind of just going along for the ride, and you're nudging it in the ways you want. You're manipulating it by positioning yourself, right? So, yeah, I'm bummed it's summer because I have 6 months until maybe the next Jaws swell. And
we'll just pick up another sport, man.
Oh, that's what I'm doing. I'm keeping preoccupied. I'm hydrofoiling between islands here in Hawaii. I'm traveling, doing other things. But there's really no other wave like Jaws in the world that will allow myself to explore the boundaries of big wave surfing. You know, I've been doing a lot of prone paddle in big wave surfing, and competing on that big wave world tour is really fun. But I'm very interested in the concept of taking tone surfing to the next level, because here you're taking the hardest part of surfing out of the equation, which is essentially the takeoff. And that's the best part of prone paddle, you know, paddle surfing. And to Jaws is the art of lining yourself up and getting the crazy drop and then riding the wave. But I really want to see what I can do if I just get, you know, towed into a wave and I have the mentality and the understanding how to do these big tricks and get that much more barrel, coming from a high performance aspect versus from a kind of like a challenging aspect. You know, you can either take the helicopter to the top of the mountain or you can hike up. Yeah. And that one ride will probably feel better than the hundreds of rides you'll do on the heli. But the vision I have is only possible by getting towed in now.
Yeah, it's a completely different ball game. But
it's almost a different sport, and I look at it that way. Yeah. You know, but it's a discipline of a sport of surfing.
Yeah. Do you find that? So you're so variable with the sports that you do. People that only do one, do you find they're pretty rigid, and so they see you out on the foil one day and then they see you out on a sup? Do you ever get hate for doing so many different things?
You know, I think the mindset is sort of shifting. The paradigm of like it's core and it's cool to only do one thing is sort of like kind of twisting, because a couple years ago it was kind of like frowned upon to do all these sports. You know, it was like you kind of would get like hazed or ridiculed because you weren't part of any one tribe. You were just kind of a wandering gypsies, essentially, in terms of like this tribal sport that we all participate in. Surfing is very tribal in that sense, where it's like it's cliquey and it can be like, you know, only the people from one spot have like, you know, the pecking order. But the coolest thing now is people are starting to understand that it's not always perfect for shortboarding. It's not always perfect for one sport. So why not just go do something else and make your life a little more colorful? I look at it as the waves like you've only been drawing with one crayon your entire life, you know, like one color. Yeah. And here you just got a whole box and you can draw different colors, and all of a sudden you have a different picture, a different like in your own body, in your own mind. And at the end of the day, when, you know, it's all said and done and life is over, it's going to be a much more colorful book versus just a black and white. But like lately, I've been getting a lot of people into hydrofoiling. You know?
Yeah, let's talk about it. I've been waiting to talk about this, man. I'm so into it. I saw that video of you catching a wave on the hydrofoil. I didn't even know this was possible, and you pump right back out without like lying down at all, and you just catch another wave in. So can you tell people that haven't seen it, what's the deal with the hydrofoil?
So the hydrofoil, to put it in layman's terms specifically, what allows me to float in the air, essentially hover above water, is an underwater airplane wing, if you can imagine that. The front wing is what's creating lift, and just like an airplane, the rear wing is creating stability, and that's what's allowing you to float above the water. It's simple physics, hydrodynamics. It's basically what people use to create planes hydrodynamically, just brought down into the water. And when you can basically ride the smallest wave out there because you eliminate the surface tension, which in surfing is the slowest part of riding a wave, is the drag you get from the water on the bottom of your board. So by lifting yourself up and having basically, however long of a fin, depending on the size of the waves, that is going to be cutting through, and there's a lot less resistance. So riding smaller waves and riding bigger waves all of a sudden become a sort of like your basically spectrum of wave riding is a lot bigger, and the waves you can actually reach out and go into. You can ride the unrideable, essentially, from the biggest waves ever ridden to the smallest waves ever ridden, and the longest waves.
I know, I saw that video.
I was just in Peru, and I caught, like, out of a physical wave, it was 3.5 miles long. But I've also done waves, I would consider wave riding, basically from between islands, like Molokai to Oahu is 32 miles. So that's like one long wave, basically.
Yeah. I want to talk about the crossings in a second, but you're kind of the poster boy for the hydrofoil. Were you involved in the development of it? Because I know Laird was doing it a little while ago.
Yeah, it's interesting because the hydrofoil's been around for 110 years. It was originally developed for the military. The military industrial complex essentially makes almost everything we ride today, but then we make it from blowing up people to fun. It's like the transition of that. So it's really interesting how that kind of happens in all sports, since a lot of the equipment is built out of NASA space age materials. So that's funny too. But yeah, so like basically to give you kind of like a timeline, it was invented by the military. It was applied to boats. It was applied to missiles. And then a guy by Mike Murphy started sitting on, made one for called an air chair, and you basically sit on and get towed behind a boat, and you can do tricks and stuff, and it turned into its own sport behind like wakeboarding, right? Laird and Dave Kalama and Rush Randall and these, the strapped crew from here in Maui saw that, so they took the seat off and they started standing on that. There was very little development that went into the foil from the air chair towards that. And the capacity they were working at was at high speeds. Like, it wasn't meant for low end. And their focus, their main goal was to ride the biggest waves in the world. Waves where you couldn't go fast enough on a traditional surfboard.
Gotcha.
And then I started doing it since I was 9 that way. And then it kind of transitioned to me doing it in kite surfing. It became a popular thing for kiting because you didn't need a jet ski to tow yourself around. You could just use a kite. And that kind of developed everything quick. And I always was like, gosh, we could ride open ocean swells downwind. Here I have this run called, basically the Maliko run. It's Maliko to Kahului Harbor. It's 10 miles of the north shore of Maui. And it's just great. I've been paddling canoe, paddling stand-up paddles, and doing all these races. And I'm like, how can I take a bicycle and turn it into a motorcycle in terms of speed and sensation?
Yeah.
So it was really about going and working on a low-end wing, allowing you to ride not the biggest waves ever ridden, but the smallest waves ever ridden, which are these open ocean wind swells. And that was my motivation, was how can we take, this is a pre-existing thing, but re-engineer it, reapply it, bring these new materials in, and essentially create a completely new sport. It's so different than how it was before. It would be like going from complete right to complete left on that spectrum of like applications.
Yeah, and just recently you did all the Hawaiian crossings between the islands, right?
So I've always wanted to try to give back however I can, because the ocean sort of like made me who I am. It's been the provider for everything I've ever done. I get paid by my sponsors, and I get to do these competitions because of the ocean, right? And Red Bull and I thought, how cool would it be to do a statewide beach cleanup? Basically the first of its kind, doing massive beach cleanups as I cross between each island. And then how do we bring attention to that? Because to most people that would sound pretty boring, like, ooh, a beach cleanup, unless you're in the water and you're at your home beach, it's not something that would pop up on your head. So I was like, well, I'm going to do it on the hydrofoil. It's never been done between any islands. No one's ever done it. So it's like, I'm going to try to break all the records that I have done paddling on a foil. And so I did that. And I guess the idea was that just bringing awareness to microplastics in the ocean, because here in Hawaii, we're plagued from Asia and, North America and South America, all that plastic that runs in the ocean that turns into microplastics that fish eat, that, eventually we eat. All that plastic gets stuck into the Pacific gyres and it ends up on our shores. So what better way to bring awareness to it? And I worked with Sustainable Coastlines Hawaii, who's a big, prominent beach cleanup foundation over here. They're trying to figure out how we could keep our beaches clean and keep the fish from eating it, as well as Five Gyres, who do the same thing. They study the ocean plastic and they try to understand where it's coming from, because the whole point is we don't want to clean up the beaches. We want to stop the
long-term solution.
So it's like you basically just go to, where that trash is coming off and you stop it there. And
Gotcha.
Then we alleviate the problem.
How do you deal with the contrast between being a pro athlete and inevitably you're jet skiing, you've got helis filming you, so obviously there's lots of fuel burning and pollution. It's bound to happen. How do you deal with that?
Well, it's interesting because it's almost unavoidable in modern society to actually operate without using some sort of fossil fuel or plastics. The whole point, though, is reducing the carbon footprint to a point where it's not going to be impacting, our environment, our Earth, basically. Because right now we're just over flooding it. And I would be the first one to transition to everything, renewable. And sometimes, for example, electric, the technology we have now is not necessarily better for the environment.
Yeah. Actually
running, traditional fuel like gasoline in your car is probably better in the long term than using, basically a battery in your car, big lithium, because that stuff is just so poisonous for the earth in the way it's been applied. Sure, in 10 years it'll serve its purpose, but it's really interesting because I travel all over the world on a giant jet plane, and that thing is burning so much fuel. So eventually I'd like to see it, all be carbon neutral. And I try my very best. I try not to use plastic bottles. When I'm at the airport, I always travel with a big, hydro flask, basically. Yeah. And I guess, one little step at a time. And I would say the biggest impact that I'm seeing in my own home, in my own environment, has been the plastic in the ocean. So if I can cut that out, I'm already doing a bigger part.
Exactly. And I didn't mean to say that in a way attacking you or anything, because you're doing a whole lot more than most people.
The truth is I could not do anything. And
Definitely.
I would say we're all guilty by charge by doing it.
Oh, yeah.
But maybe if I just do a little bit, it'll inspire somebody else to do a little bit. And at the end of the day, it'll make a giant impact. For sure. It's the little things sometimes make the biggest difference, as we all know. So, my sports, my equipment is made out of materials that aren't necessarily ideal. But looking at guys like Kelly Slater for inspiration, who are basically he's building his brands around sustainability. But we just gotta have solutions for our problems instead of just shooting ourselves in the foot later saying, oh, we'll figure it out. It's like, no, before
or just saying that we're too far gone, or
I don't think we're too far gone.
No, I don't think so either.
The Earth is like incredible. Like if we stopped using plastic altogether today, the ocean would rebound so fast. All the plastic in our ocean would probably disappear. The problem is the ocean can't break down all of our trash fast enough for the amount that's flooding back in. So
exactly,
you got to figure out.
Yeah. Anyways, shifting gears a little bit, do you do any or much formal training like in the gym, or are you just so active out there that you're covered?
Yeah, My main training is for sure in the water. It's the sports that I do. The sports that I'm doing summertime a lot here in Maui is like the hydrofoiling between islands, the paddling, the stand-up paddling. That is all very much endurance based. I would equate it to like marathon running
Yeah.
or basically road cycling. So I get really good workout from that, but I go to the gym 3 times a week, and a lot of the stuff I do is injury prevention. It's not necessarily about bulking up. Some of it is about hitting key, muscles. Like, for example, hitting basically my legs a lot this summer for my hydrofoiling because it's such a leg-based thing. In the wintertime, it's really building up, just strengthening all of my fibers in my body so that if I get impacted, I won't just like blow my shoulder out or get injured. So I kind of look at the training that I do as very more injury prevention than it is like trying to get really buff or strength. Like the strength training I get is from the water and from spending hours and hours doing it. There's no better way to train for it. It's just filling in those gray areas that you can't quite hit when you're on the water.
Yeah, so flexibility and strengthening areas that are going to support different muscle groups. What are you doing, like yoga and stuff like that, or?
I wouldn't say I'm doing necessarily yoga, like going to a yoga class. That's too time consuming. And it's like, when I'm going to the gym, I'm doing similar exercises, but I'm doing it kind of a lot more precisely for what I'm doing. Not just trying to get a full body stretch necessarily. It's like, okay, I'm working these key components and I'm getting out there. And then, okay, I'm working these key components and I'm getting back out there. It's like tuning a race car.
Yeah.
You're just kind of tuning it, making sure everything's working. It's not like you're taking the whole car apart and putting it back together. Because sometimes the worst thing you can ever do is get a massage, which sounds really bizarre. But getting all that lactic acid out of your body actually can bench you for 2 days. So like before a giant race, the worst thing I could ever do would be to get a massage. And you're basically just trying to keep your body in tune. And your body's really good about getting all that stuff out. And after the race, you get a massage, and then you just take a 2-day break.
Okay.
But there's an art to doing it all. It's not like you get looser over time if you practice the same stuff. It's not like you just go to the gym and 2 sessions and you're completely the way you need to be. It's kind of a progression, just like it is a progression to learn how to surf and get better and better. At least that's been in my experience, and in the sports I do. It's a full-time job to try to maintain, and looking 20 years in the future, I want to be, injury-free. And so far, I've been doing a really good job. The worst things I've done is cut my foot and, basically gotten severe ankle sprains, but I've always bounced back stronger because of my training.
Yeah. And what about diet? Are you on the whole gluten-free kale shake
No way.
trends? No, you eat what you want?
No way. I need rocket fuel, man.
Love it.
Basically, if I was overweight and if I did nothing with my life, I probably would have to be on the kale gluten-free diet. For me, it's put in whatever as many calories as I can,
What's your go-to?
I mean, frick, I love Taco Bell, for example.
Taco Bell?
Taco Bell, beef burritos.
Man, you got to get a better burrito than Taco Bell, no?
Oh, I eat other burritos, but I love Taco Bell. It's just so good.
Really?
So I basically eat whatever I feel like. Like, hey, that cheeseburger looks really good. Okay, but to put it in perspective, I do eat really healthy just because where I live here in Maui, the ingredients, are incredible. So the pasta dinners I have, the burgers that I eat, basically anything I ingest is very healthy, but at the same time, I'm not like, oh my God, it's not organic, I'm not going to eat it. I really just need, fuel because my furnace burns hot. My metabolism is going 1,000 miles an hour from the sports that I do. And if I don't eat, then I'm going to bonk and I'm going to lose energy. I'm almost better off eating junk food than not eating at all.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can see that, man. You're nonstop out there, so.
I couldn't compare myself to even other athletes because the amount of sports that I do my time doing sports is, could be double, triple what somebody else does. And for my body type, the art of it is learning how to, what your body does, what your body needs. everyone's different. The way you might eat to the way I'll eat is completely different. And it's about trying to find what works best for you. And what I found, I've all my
Taco Bell.
All my world titles basically, you know, the races I've won between islands, the channel crossings I did were Taco Bell bean burritos. They just do it for me, man. Like, I just get all this energy, it sustains, it tastes great, and I feel great afterwards.
How much did they pay you?
Nothing.
No, I'm just kidding.
Always love burritos.
I'm such a big burrito fan. Man, I just found out about acai bowls.
Oh, yeah? You've never had those?
Dude, I was down in California a couple weeks ago. I had my first one. I was eating like 3 a day. It's pretty much ice cream, but...
It's pretty much ice cream. They're
so
pretty
good,
sugary.
man.
That's why they taste so good.
I know.
I mean, from going to Brazil and to, you know, here in Hawaii, we have a lot of Brazilians that live here now. And, yeah, acai bowls are awesome. You start off eating a ton, and then you slowly wean yourself off because you just are like sugar buzz.
Yeah, I know. I'm not at that stage yet. I'm still in my infancy.
Yeah, don't worry. It'll hit you.
It'll hit me soon, yeah. And fish tacos, too. I was in Maui last year, man. You guys have some great taco spots.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Fish tacos are great. And you know why I like a burrito, though? Is because I can run and go. I've actually caught on Jaws where I've come by the jet ski and they've handed me a burrito, and I don't want to miss a single wave because these swells are so rare. Put it in my mouth, paddled out, eating in the lineup, a wave comes, I just keep it in my mouth, and I catch a Jaws wave, eat a burrito. I do it when I'm hydrofoiling between islands, you know, the boat's sitting there, and I'll just come up and they'll do a handoff, a Taco Bell drive-through essentially, and then I'll just go and I'll be eating my burrito. But the nice thing is you can have all the goodies inside, you can just hold it. And then there's no trash afterwards. You just stuff your face, and it's gone.
I think you've just converted everyone who's listening to burrito eaters. I've always been a believer. Huge fan.
Like, a burrito is a better version of a sandwich. Because
for sure. It's so tight.
Yeah, every sandwich, you just lose all your good food, right? You know, so you lose everything as you're going, if you're running, right? And the burrito, it's like I could ride a Jaws wave, I could ride an open ocean swell on a foil, and I know I'll be getting every little bit.
You know what? Here's what you do. I want you to redo the crossing on the hydrofoil to raise awareness for burritos.
Yeah.
I think that's what needs to happen.
I'm sure I mean, we have footage of me eating burritos out there on a hydrofoil, so maybe I don't even have to do it again. But the next time I do it, I'll be doing it again.
So when you were young, living in Maui, did you go to public school?
I didn't go to public school when I was, a little kid over here in Maui. I went to a private school, Montessori, until I was in 8th grade. And then I started traveling so much for my sports that I was doing online school. And the deal with my parents was I had to be getting, basically a 4.0 and all A's across the board if I wanted to keep on that path. And because I was so motivated by the idea of being a world champion and being a professional athlete, rising to the level that my heroes are at, I basically, took it very, very seriously. And, after high school, that was it. I just, continuing to do what I do. And I don't think I could even have time to take an online course for college. Like, my time is so stretched out with all the sports I do. And it's very interesting, though, because I'm finding a love for some things that I didn't like in school. Example, writing. I keep a journal every day of what I do and the journeys I go on, because it would be cool to, share that with somebody one day, the stories that I have, but also, to be able to reflect for myself, to understand why something went this way and where do I want to go from there, right? It's part of the process of being the athlete I want to become. And so writing, pages and pages and pages of documents, that's one thing, when you're in school you don't particularly like, at least I didn't. It's like, gosh, I want to just get it over with so I can go run outside PE, and then physics. I wasn't, I wouldn't say I was ever that infatuated with math, but physics in the context that I was taught in normal school wasn't very inspirational.
Exactly. Yeah.
And here I'm working with physics with, a partner of mine and my sponsors, making these hydrofoils. Where physics, it's numbers, it's trying to figure out how and why something works the way it does, and why it's working that way that math can't explain, and then figuring out what the math is for that. So there is like I'm learning more doing the way I'm doing it now than I would if I just went a traditional route.
Yeah.
Traveling, I've been traveling by myself since I was 15 years old, and that's why I couldn't go to normal high school because the high school restrictions here in Hawaii, Maui, you can't leave very much. And I was like, you know what? It's my time to sail. If I want to get ahead of where I want to be in life, I got to start now.
Yeah. I had the exact same thing in terms of schooling, man, where, and I don't blame any of my teachers. I mean, I went to a public school. They've got to deal with 30 kids in the classroom trying to tailor each, you're learning physics, and maybe this kid's into skateboarding, and then this girl's into horseback riding or hockey or something, right? You can't tailor it to everyone.
Yeah.
And yeah, when you get older and you leave school, you realize that you were actually passionate about them, but you just had to apply them in the way that you wanted to.
Resetting the context of the, you know, like of the physics, basically.
Yeah. Did you have many friends at high school, or were you gone too much?
I think the friends that I had when I was in high school was through my sports, through surfing, through windsurfing, through kiting, the people I met around the world. So it was hard when I was in middle school and even elementary because it was really hard for me to relate to kids that liked playing video games because I couldn't go in a house and sit and play video games. That was like so boring and, you know, not stimulating. I'd rather be on the water. And sure, there were kids that were doing it, but not like today. Today, there's so many kids here on Maui that are doing the sports that I'm doing now. And I love that. I think that's so much healthier for them mentally and, you know, as a human than being locked up in a room. But again, you know, a lot of the friends that I have created definitely, you know, were senior to me. They were older because the sports that I was participating in, the place I was traveling. So looking back on it now, I have a really core group of friends around me because we're all, you know, it's like we all came from different directions and we have ended up kind of towards the same goal. Yeah. And, you know, that's, you attract, you know, the people that are like-minded, right?
Yeah, your vibe is your tribe.
Yeah, and you are who you hang out with too. So absolutely. I get to hang out with some pretty bad dudes and girls, you know. So that basically forces me to step it up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, have you done the underwater layered workout yet?
Yeah, I've done that.
How's that?
It's pretty intense. I mean, it's a gnarly workout. It's like the hardest thing that I struggle with is overtraining. So like the way I'm doing all my training now it wouldn't be as conducive for me to do the training like his on top of what I already do because I would just overtrain and then you'd become, you know, basically bland sort of thing. You'd become like you feel flat.
Always,
you know,
training and never doing anything.
Well, it's training and then going out and actually being worse. Like if you overtrain, it's not like you don't actually get better by training more. It's about like training smarter. And if I was on Laird's program, just only Laird's program, it would be awesome. Yeah. But the program I'm on and the amount of sports that I do per day is not necessarily as conducive to what they're doing, what he's doing. That being said, though, what he does is pretty incredible. It's great training. It's mentally toughening. I would say it's more a mental workout than anything else. I'd like to do more of it in the future, but the time that I would spend underwater with weights in a pool, I'd rather be paddling between an island or foiling between an island, you know?
Yeah. Between like photo shoots, actually going out there and riding every day and all the responsibilities that come with being sponsored, do you ever experience a burnout?
Sometimes I need a break from it all, you know, like you never want to feel burned out. A lot of time it's just like people pulling you from every direction and you're like, okay, I just need like time to go out and do what I love. You know, I've never felt a burnout from being in the water ever. That's a very, you know, lucky thing because it happens to a lot of athletes. But the hardest is like doing interviews about what I do and doing those at a time when the surf is good or the conditions are what I would be doing. So it's like essentially taking away from what got me there is taking me away from where I want to be. So it's about like, it's just a balance, you know, because part of my job is, as you know, is to, you know, put, you know, a good face on for my sponsors do interviews, do promotions, do this stuff, like sell the brand, sell the lifestyle. But the core of it all for me is having fun, and I can't imagine life would be pointless to me if I couldn't be in the water, really. I don't know what I would do with myself.
Yeah, you're doing, well, at least from what I can tell, you seem to be doing a really good job of staying true to what got you to where you are now. A lot of people, it's really hard when things just become so familiar.
Oh, for sure. I think keeping things in perspective, that's what I like about being here on Maui, is because whether you're a superstar and just an example, like celebrities love coming to Maui because nobody cares about them. Like it's a bigger deal when Kelly Slater shows up. But at the same time, you get treated as a normal person too. That's what I love about this island, is that it's like you're not any necessarily better than anybody else unless you're just a nicer person, right?
Nice.
Like that's the core of it all. And sure, people are like, could be stoked to see you and all that, but it's really hard to have a big head here because people won't help you inflate it.
Sounds like the perfect home base. It's the same here in Whistler. If you're a pro skier, you might as well, you're essentially working at a cafe. Everyone's pro, and it creates a great environment where everyone's just nice, and it doesn't matter what you do. It's about how you act.
The environment here allows you to grow up more, level-headed and grounded. It's kind of a bummer when you see kids or, somebody who's, really good and you're like, wow, you're kind of like inspired by them. And then you meet them and you're like, wow, how could you, why is he like that? How would I be if I wasn't, getting the notoriety I am through my sports? I mean, that's how you should act always.
Yeah.
You're just nice and, but you got to be determined and,
It's hard to balance the both of it, right? Because you were talking at the start about the on and the off switch. And that's almost what it is for some people. They haven't figured out how to turn off that aggression that gets them far in the sport when they come back on to land.
Yeah, exactly. Like in a competition, you want to destroy everyone. Duh. The reason why you're competing is to kind of see where you level up against the best in the world. And I love competing mostly because it allows me to rise to the occasion. It allows me to push my riding to a place I couldn't without that pressure. Pressure makes diamonds, and I wouldn't be where I am today in my riding if it wasn't for feeling that intense pressure in a competition. So that's why I personally like it. But in order to do that, you kind of have to get aggressive, and you kind of have to be selfish. To be a world champion, you've got to be selfish. It's you and no one else, essentially. That's just the truth. That's like the harsh truth. But that doesn't mean you have to be that way on land. It's only between the 20 minutes you're in the water and that horn goes off and that horn ends. And we can all be friends back on shore. But it's not looking at it from a personal stance. It's more from just a competitive outlook. It's like it's just business, like businesses.
Have you ever had a situation where you've had friends or even maybe family that want to kind of hang out and spend more time with you, but you're so focused on what you're doing that they feel a bit neglected?
Well, I mean, nowadays in my, I'm 24, in this time in my life, no, because people understand me and they get it. For sure, in the earlier times, it was like, no, I can't do this. I can't go out with you to the movies even, or I can't go out to that party with you because I have to train tomorrow and I have to go to bed early. It's unfortunately, there's a cost to everything, to having success and winning. You have to be able to sacrifice something, and no matter what, there's going to be a sacrifice, whether it's in the beginning or in the end, right? And so the people I surround myself with are like-minded people, and if they're not necessarily, into the sports that I do, they understand me, and they understand the mood swings from like, okay, big competition's up, I'm putting the blinders on. But yeah, you are who you surround yourself with, and I have an incredible group of people that, I've been able to be around.
Yeah, you seem to have a pretty good grasp on who you are. Like you do a lot of thinking, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, what else do you do when you're just sitting around waiting for something to happen? There's a lot.
Well, you watch Netflix, right? And then you don't think at all. There's
Yeah,
that's an option.
yeah. I mean, I definitely watch a lot of movies on the airplane, but in competition, there's a lot of hurry up and wait, especially in surfing events. You could be waiting a week at the beach, and sure, you can listen to music, but you don't want to necessarily distract yourself too much from your goal because all of a sudden the conditions turn on. They're like, okay, you're on, get out there. You're flustered. You kind of have to be playing everything out in your head, and you can't get too distracted. So it gives you time to really think, and the better you know yourself, the less it interferes with your competition. Because if you're second guessing yourself and if you're riding off of emotion, that's typically going to be your downfall. You want to have your ship tight. In your head, it's like you can see everything from your home life to your competitive life to your equipment. There's no gray areas. There's no unknowns. If you can eliminate that, then you're going to be better off.
Everything's aligned, yeah. Cool. Well, man, thanks so much for taking the time to do this. I'm stoked we finally got to connect. I know you're pretty much always on a plane, so this is a rare moment when I caught you at home, and hopefully I didn't make you miss any good swells out there.
No, it worked out perfect.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Sweet, man. Well, what's next for you then? Where would you like people to find you?
I mean, if the easiest way to follow me is on social media, obviously, like Instagram, Facebook. I try to keep people up to date the best I can to where I'm going. I'm actually potentially going to Montana to do a kite surfing trip of all places.
What?
So that should be cool when that comes out. And then after that, on the Big Wave World Tour, and that could start up at any day now. That's the craziest tour you could ever be on, because in 72 hours you have to be somewhere in the world to go ride some of the biggest waves of your life in a competition. And I could be in Bali and also get a call, hey, you need to be in Europe to go surf in Nazaré in Portugal.
And mentally you need to show up too, right? Just turn that switch.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, dropping everything in. Big wave surfing's like that. It comes up, you drop everything in your life, everyone around you understands because they get it, and you go.
Is this event live streamed?
Yeah, it's the World Surf League Big Wave World Tour.
Right.
And it can happen from any time between now and March 2018. So there's that's the season for the Big Wave World Tour. So anytime between then.
All right, well, we'll turn on alerts for that. And next time you're up in Whistler, man, there's a place called Mags 99 Burritos. I don't know if you've been. Best burrito in Canada.
Oh,
so good, man.
So down.
Yeah, we'll do it. Thanks so much, man.
Later, dude.
Thank you for listening, everybody. If you enjoyed it, you can head over to iTunes. Feel free to subscribe, or you can check out the website, and we also post these podcasts on YouTube. If you enjoyed it, you can leave a review on iTunes, and you can also subscribe to the monthly email.